Welcome back to For the Love of Humanity, Season 3, Episode 11. I can't even believe it. Episode 11 already. I usually do about 13 episodes a season. Usually they have been drawn out over like a year where I take a massive break of like 3 months and process some stuff. I had in my head like that I wanted to make sure I came through processing before speaking about certain things so I had a greater handle on it and I'd have a flexibility and insight around talking about it. And then also I found that I'm processing faster now. I'm also realizing that I like to share on the fly because sometimes when I wait so long, the thing feels so distant, it feels so unrelated that it's hard to speak on it in a way that I feel that gives practical application or practical nuance. So it's interesting. This time period I've really put it through. I think I'm starting and finishing them within like 2 to 3 months, which is also somewhat influenced by the fact that I'm using Anchor and they're switching over or something like that. They're like switching over to Riverside, or I don't know. There's been a while though where I wanted to move into video podcasting and I just haven't really felt the want yet. Similar to when I was recording, I'd go off for months and I just didn't feel the impulse or the want to do it. And so now this is creating a situation because beginning June 4th, the recording and editing tools will no longer be available. So I'm like, perfect timing. I like the number 3. I'll end on 3 seasons for audio, and then it will kind of morph into something else, I think, for the video. So a little heads up on the vision and what I see coming through. And who knows, things are always subject to flow and change of life, but that's where I'm at this point. And I wanted to give enough analysis and practical application of transformation. And I also am feeling like I'm winding from that into a more, like, it was very intensely focused. It was very like doing the deep work and feeling like the dark night of the soul and feeling the pain. And it felt very intense. And now I'm moving more to winding it out. And what does it feel like when you feel like you've been whipped around a few times and you're now sort of out to dry in the sun and you're feeling ready to create and you're feeling ready to move into the next stages and steps, and you've done the good processing and you've taken the deep breaths and you've felt the things fully through and you feel good about it, like you hit the notch inside, like there's no, it's not like you'll go into the future and be like, did I really address that? Really, did I deal with that? Because there has been a few times where I'm like, I thought I forgave that thing. I thought I dealt with that deep thing. I thought I dealt with that core wound. Why is that core wound still here? And then you hear other people say, like, it'll always be there. You'll always have an echo of it. And then part of me was like, no, clear it out. No, 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 no. That's not for me, sister. Let's complete this thing. Let's close that book. Let's shut the door on this one. And then I got shown a few times like, sometimes there's a residue. Sometimes there's a residue that'll show up. And it's funny because within the last couple months, I've been really realizing that sometimes things come up to just show you, for you to just see, because things are cyclical. And so you're going to have overlaps and overlays where you experience something and you're like, yeah, that used to feel like this and now it feels like this. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. What a progress. And that was something I talked about last episode where maybe there aren't clear graduation markers as you leave structured institution. There's not like a clear moment where you're like, I've graduated from this lesson. That's very clear because this date is the date they hand me the rolled up paper. And it's more like, I've been walking for a while. I'm going to stop. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to look back. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to enjoy the reflection. And sometimes that comes with like New Year's or the leap year episode I did where I looked back at the last 4 years, right? Sometimes it's a spontaneous, externally triggered event that makes you reflect, which often we get tiny ones like that all the way along. And then sometimes it's a look, I got to celebrate. I just feel the overwhelming urge to really take stock and be like, you know what? This is great. And sometimes it's a scenario. So this, I guess these last few episodes of this season 3, I really want to wind into you're not in the healing phase forever. You'll continue to be healing and find health in small ways, but like the really big throes of things aren't what your continued state. It's not a chronic healing state, right? And then that's not to say you won't experience something in the future where you're like, well, fuck, I've just blown out this hip and now I got to heal that. It's not like it won't be like that. It's just you'll be so familiar with the healing phases and stages that you won't get jostled around by it. It won't phase you as much. You'll be like, I know what I'm doing here. You'll trust in your innate ability to rebalance and harmonize yourself, which was, a huge theme in the Balanced Masculine guide sessions that I produced and the feminine guide sessions that I'm in the midst of producing as we speak. And it's this natural trust that there's an innate unraveling that knows that, like a conscious archetypal unraveling that's already aware of what to do, and that you're a self-aligning organism that is here to both experience and synergize and expand, and like it's just a really beautiful system. It's a work of art. It's a masterpiece. Being human on earth right now in a body that works the way it does is an absolute masterpiece, and to know that we are refining and evolving and like becoming efficient, like think about it, over millions of years we've been doing this, and how cool to be acutely aware of it, and how wonderful to be acutely dialed in and tuned into the fact that, ooh, the speed at which our external is influencing us and influencing our consciousness and our awareness is ramping up so fast because of technology. Like the changes people would see in a lifetime, you know, hundreds of years ago is so different to the changes we see in a lifetime, and how interconnected we are, how we're aware to the minute level. Like we can see someone's TikTok and see what we're not just picking up on what they're doing in the video, we're picking up on the nuances of the environment they live in, the socioeconomic political climate they live in, the just the value of what they're placing on what they're recording, the decision to hit record, the thing they're recording, the thing that they're saying, the way in which they relate. All of that is giving us like gigabytes of information, like whatever the terabytes of information, and we're not even aware of how much information we're picking up on. And to think that that does not have an impact on how fast we evolve, no, we are evolving as fast as AI, if not faster, because we are the OG intelligence. We are the AI of God to a degree, because we are already infused with that source. But like we are the divine intelligence experiencing itself on earth, the cutting edge. Like some people, their perspective on God is evolving as fast as we are. Like God is us experiencing itself. And as we experience and learn, there's a perspective I've heard, like in the spiritual realms and the divine realms, we think God loved first, but it was design. And it wasn't until human beings started like interacting and developing capacity for feeling and heart and nuance and relation, and from the mirroring aspect of recognizing self and other, we develop the capacity for love. And that's why Earth is so special. And like, I don't tie myself too much to any of beliefs unless they ring true inside, and it's like a bell rings and it's like ding, ding, ding. I like that one. I like the way that one feels, because I know I'm choosing to hear perspectives, feel if they resonate, choose to align with them or not. And there is consequence to aligning with any perspective, right? And if you get too locked into any perspective, it can be rigid. And if you don't have any, you can just feel like you're floating and not really here. And so there's that delicate balance, like I talked last week, of having this experience and relating to it while remembering it's an experience, right? Like playing a video game, you're not going to get too bent out of shape when lose a life in a video game. It wouldn't be the same here as a human experience. We're ultimately invested, embodied, like enmeshed in this human experience. And when we do experience feelings like love, it feels very real. And to think that God is evolving at the edge of our evolution and creation is like, oh God, what do you mean? I thought that God had the plan. I thought, thought that there was a bigger blueprint. And there is. I believe in that. I believe that that rings true to me, that there is a bigger blueprint. But the thought of like God is only evolving to the fastest, most expanded human being on the planet is like, oh shoot, that can be a really like think about that for a second. That's a mind bender. And that can mess with you if you think certain people are, if you've got somebody in your head and you're like, that's the most developed person I think I know of. Well, it depends on what you think is the most developed. Like some people might think of, Elon Musk and think, well, that's the most advanced human. Maybe, maybe not. What are we talking about? What's the spectrum? Somebody else might think it's like, you know, Gandhi or the Dalai Lama. Somebody else might think it's Ram Dass. Like, who knows, right? And then we have this idea of ascended masters and people who have been here and left incredible teachings and tools for one another, for the rest of humanity to sort of like breadcrumb it along the line. And so we can tell that there are people that have reached heights that we have not reached, that the mass consciousness has not reached yet, but they're the exemplar of the potential, of the human potential. 11. And so what I find interesting about this experience, see, I've lost my thread there. This, I talked about this last time and I was going to be embarrassed about it, but I've decided not to be. And so doing this podcast, these are the types of questions, these are the types of cosmic conversations that my husband jokes about, that I charge and charge by the minute. Give me a call the hotline, and we can have a cosmic conversation. I'll just walk through the forest and have a cosmic conversation with you and see where our consciousness edges, where it goes to. What are the edges and limits of our consciousness and understanding? But to know that we're having this elegant experience, to know that we're having this truly divine experience, and to both relate to our human experience and understand there's a bigger, grander, existential question about what's going on, is a wonderful thing. And we get to choose. And that's why we're here. That's why we're literally here choosing every moment of every day. And sometimes the awareness of the fact that every single thing is a choice with consequence, with unfolding, is like, oh shit, that for me, at least for a bit, spooked me. I was like, I don't want to do any choices then. Because God, how do you anticipate? And then it was like, oh, I have control stuff. Cool. I have perfectionism and control stuff because I'm scared about the sheer weight of the decisions and knowing that they create a refractory ripple effect. And it wasn't like overwhelming of decisions like, do I get up and brush my teeth today? Oh God. And I'm not over dramatizing that to be rude. I'm just saying like that can be the feeling. And I remember I am a bit dramatic. So sometimes that's the inner voice to myself, to have a little bit of fun. But understanding that changes have like a ripple effect. And if you can imagine like the ocean, like one wave creating another wave, creating another, or like putting a drop in, a lake and seeing the ripple go out and out, and it gets faint, right? Obviously, fine. But the whole butterfly wing thing, like a butterfly flaps its wings in one area and creates a tsunami somewhere else, whatever. I don't even remember what that one is. But so casual about it. I know I could get better at these references, or I could look them up if I choose to use them, like at least get them right. But it's better the real me. The me that cares and then doesn't care and then cares a little too much and then is flippant about other things. And that's what 13 minutes in, 14 minutes in, this episode is about. It's about the walk of paradox. This could be developing from a self-help into a comedy show, but questionably comedy show. Questionable. What's your appetite for humor? What do you find funny? So the walk of paradox is life. That's it. That is life. Life is a paradox. So I mentioned before, if you hear other people, standing up for stuff and I figured it out and this is the way, and then you're like, wait a minute, that contradicts something else you said over here, which, I've been watching a lot of spiritual teachers talk. I've been watching a lot of um, speeches on personal development, and personal development teachers deliver content, deliver courses. I've consumed and educated and learned and read and listened audiobooks, listened to podcasts, listened to speeches, TED Talks. Um, I've consumed a lot of content in these areas. And it's interesting because you start to pick up on the ethos and you can distill it down. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, that contradicts that ethos and and then you start to think, oh my God, are you even a trustworthy person to follow? Because I don't even know if you know what you're talking about, because the paradox is just it seems hypocritical, or it seems blah, blah, blah. And then you start to see where it's like, what is a true misaligned perspective where someone has like literally spoken out of both sides of their mouth and it doesn't make sense. And therefore that advice is sort of null and void, versus what is the experience of witnessing someone describe something with such nuance that at times it's this and at times it's that. And we live in a paradox, and that's the way it is. Like, they're not trying to be erroneous. They're not actually being hypocritical. It's just in this scenario, it's this, and in that scenario, it's that. Like, inhale and exhale. Like, nobody's coming in and claiming, like, you only ever inhale on earth. That's it. There's no inhales, only exhales. And then they exhale, and you're like, see, you exhaled. Like, no, you need both. There is an interplay here. It's not one or the other. And then, what are the things that you're watching where someone's just clearly grown in their perspective, and the core tenet of what they're talking about still rings true to their values, but the way that they understood the experience has now expanded and encompasses more than what they thought. And to lasso it all up, to tie it all back around, I am reflecting on these last few episodes. This is episode 11, so I'll only do 2 more probably. And I really want to rein in that at one point it was like dark night of the soul, go through your pain, deal with your pain. I want to help people deal with their pain. I want to be, doing one-on-one coaching sessions with this. And as I did that, I found, okay, this is a little more challenging than I thought, and I enjoy it. And it's giving me insight. And at the same time, you can't force people to learn the things, and you can use analogies as much as you want. And the old, you can lead a horse to water. And I worked with this personal trainer, and I probably told the story in season 1, but I remember her telling me that she was a fantastic person, like powerhouse, like super, like little powerhouse, like just energy for days. And was telling me, like, which you can see why a personal trainer like this person gets you motivated to lift heavy things, especially if you're a sedentary person and you're like, I don't want to. No, I don't. Muscle burn is awful. And yet this is like her love affair, having people like feel powerful. And I will tell you, at the end of working with her, I was like so grateful. Like, you fortified me in ways I didn't even know. Shout out to Nina. She's incredible. Anyway, I remember her telling me about some clients she had too, where it was like she would wake them up or go to the place to like get them to do the personal training. And she's like, I just knew with some clients, like I wanted it more than they did. And that was super demotivating, because that meant that I'd have to do a lot of like energetic and emotional work and like cheerleading work to just get them to do the thing. And I remember feeling like, yeah, yeah. And working with certain people and working, in different environments at the school, training, coaching people on, job retraining or even outplacement when mass people were laid off from certain companies, manufacturing companies. I'd be working with them on how to get a job next and how to retrain and what were they looking for, and just like attempting with motivation and just realizing that you can't force someone to learn. Like, they learn in their time, and they have to be responsible for the lion's share of the motivation towards it, because otherwise you're like dragging someone and they don't get it. Like, they don't get to feel like it's a win, and they don't take it in the same way as if you're like behind them moving their arms for them. Like, you've been bench pressing 130, but we both know I've been mostly holding that. So it's probably about 20 pounds is what you've been bench pressing the bar, and I've been lifting the weights. Like, it doesn't make sense. The person doesn't get the gains. And also it will run you ragged, because did you sign up for dragging people out of bed? No, you signed up for people who are excited about making a change. And you're like, my specialite is like knowing the limits, knowing where to take you, being able to guide you through, this is this is a guidepost. This is something you will come up against. You will experience this moment at about week 3 where you feel this drop, or you will experience, at stage 6, you're going to feel like, oh no, here comes the big bad wolf. This is the big one. I thought I was fighting the big ones earlier, and now this is the real big one. And this one could cause me to turn around and go home. Or, I've been in this stage of digging for so long. When does the digging stop? Because I got so used to the digging and now I forget what it's like to enjoy too. Or, easing off the cycles, when to come out of the extremes, when to return to balance, when to walk that paradox of going internal versus external, when to realize the self-work has culminated and it is time to continue on your journey and do the other things and be with the people again and enjoy the people and coagulate in this aspect of who you are and let that solidify and but keep it nubile, keep it limber, keep it loose and colorful, because you know that anything that you attach to so strongly and calcify at some point will be tested, and it might be tested and you might be shown that it actually needs to be taken down, not that it needs to be fortified more. Just be prepared for that, because structures you think you're going to carry for your whole life, you probably won't. And so just get renewable and sustainable, so walking this paradox and walking this line and understanding who you want to work with and what that looks like, and headed right back to, I wanted to do trauma work and I wanted to help people from the mental anguish and the mental agony of depression and anxiety and feeling like you're locked in your mind and you can't get out, and trying to think your way out of being locked in your mind, and it being like, no, it's somatics, it's surrender. And like during that time period, I learned so many good tools. Like, as I said, I learned somatic breathwork, became I got a certification to be a somatic breathwork practitioner, but did not necessarily offer that in services, but do it myself, practiced it really well, did it a few times with people, but not something like, oh, I'm just going to run down that pathway now. That's exactly what I want. That's fully what I want. I'm fully into it. But it happened to be something else that gave me more insight and more personal practice and more another tool on my tool belt. And the hypnosis and having people connect with their higher self and their intuition, and breaking the boundaries of what they thought was possible to connect with themselves, and creating that moment where they could latch and feel and connect to that soul aspect, and then carry that forever. Now when they meditate, they know what it feels like, just leading them there so they could feel it and know it and not doubt it, and have somebody confirm it and be there with them. And there was that experience, and I did that for a while. And it was not only just experiences where people could connect with that soul and connect, they could also release trauma and release emotions that had been stored up, and just experience healing on a certain level. So that was fabulous, fantastic, amazing, wonderful, beautiful. Again, it can give someone a glimpse, and then if they're not really into it, and if it's not really something that they want to stay with, like the connection to that part of themselves, the connection to using their vision and their mind and their intuitive guidance in that way, then it just sort of becomes a interesting party experience almost, right? Like having a psychic at a party, but being like, well, I don't really believe in psychics, but I did this cool thing and they were kind of right about this or that. And then that was it, right? And so I realized that convincing the general population of stuff that I know to be true is not really that. It's not something I want to delve into every day and spend the majority of my focus and my attention on, because I said a few episodes, where you're choosing to focus is where you're going to develop mastery. And when you put that much time and effort into something and you look backwards, are you going to be like, in hindsight, I'm glad I spent all that time there. That felt like a good use of my time. And it's funny, I keep reading this in my human design challenge solver, right? And one of the things that keeps coming up in the descriptions is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Just because you got really effective at fixing something or solving a problem somewhere or finding the most efficient path somewhere, brilliant, charge for those skills, have that be your thing. But if it ultimately is just you don't enjoy it, but you do it because you can, and you do it because you think you should, there's another level and layer of being that's I'm doing this thing that friggin' lights me up, that I enjoy so much that I'm salivating thinking about it. My teeth are oh, I just love it. It's when you love seeing a baby and you could just squeeze the baby, like that feeling, like, and you can put it down too. It's not something you're obsessed, but you're not. You're obsessed, but you don't even mind. You don't even care. I'm in love and I'm obsessed. So that's sort of what I started to feel like as I went through this. And I'm trying to think, is there any other certifications we can talk about that I did during that period of self-exploration that really I thought was going to be the sort of niched down, like niche down, this is what we're doing. And what I realized was like there was a lot of things that I did and I wanted to help with. So that's why this podcast seemed like it made so much sense to me. It made sense because I was learning so much about how to navigate my journey. I was working with people and navigating it, but I was also coming to more awareness of the preferences. And like, I really liked the breakthroughs I was having, and I liked it because it was breakthrough, and I liked it because it could help other people. And I'm very motivated to help other people. That's one of my things is I'm so motivated to help people. I'm so effortlessly and easily channel solutions to their problems because I get out of the way and I let them come through, and it's a joy and it's a delight. Okay. So I can take that. But do I want to be at the point with people where they're going back and forth over the line of, do I want it or not? Can I handle it or not? Am I ready to do it or not? And it was like really resonant with my friend's story about, I don't want to be dragging people out of bed. I don't want to be encouraging people to learn personal development if it's not their thing. I don't want to, and I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago, that fine line between like manipulating and motivating, that fine line between like teaching and trespassing in someone's right to their own experience and their own timing around their experience and the timing around revelation for them and the timing around epiphany for them, and like inducing epiphany in the most like inspirational way instead, like just by being and by saying like, hey, this is a way of living, if you like it, reach out and I'll help you and I'll walk you through it. But that requires out of the person who wants to do it a high degree of interest and a high degree of personal responsibility around it, that's my sweet spot. That's my area because those people I like skyrocket with. I was at the college teaching an entrepreneurship class, and I just maybe 4 years previous graduated from my master's, and I did social entrepreneurship as my master's thesis. Like, what's the deal with social entrepreneurship? It was a critique on it, really, and really coming to terms with it's really about intent and motivation and what we're using it for and what's the point of it. And there was lots of businesses that could preach social entrepreneurship or preach a social cause and or social aim, but that was really for marketing, you know, um, a marketing pivot versus people who are like totally not for profit. I want to make no money off of this. I really just want this service or this thing to exist to help people. And then all the businesses in between that are like, yeah, I want to make money, but I want to have a good business. Like I want it to be giving to the world. I want it to deliver the thing that it's supposed to deliver. It is what it says on the box. It's for that. And, if we look around at the businesses that we have now, especially the huge multinationals, are they actually the thing that they say they are? Like even right down to food, some of the food from some of these places. Is this actually food? Like when you look at it in like a actual chemical compounding way, is this food? Is this real food? Or is this like sort of one little shift away from being a crayon or a piece of plastic? Is it food or is it plastic? Squeeze pops, like candies from when you were a kid. Is this food or is this plastic? So it was really important to study that aspect of business and know that that's out there and that's where we're going and there's an option for it. And the more we create in that realm, the more accountability is created and blah, blah, blah. And so coming off of that and teaching students about business, had to pick up that thread. Teaching students about business and entrepreneurship from that perspective meant that every student I taught about business after that was getting the benefit of that social entrepreneurial. Like, is it like another layer of accountability? So teaching like a balanced scorecard means that we're actually looking at what is the servicing and is there, the concept of a triple bottom line, people, purpose, profit. Like, is this balanced in terms of offering people something of substance that I can feel proud of, that have my virtues and my values embedded within it. My intention is clear. And again, not, judging other types of companies, but just like we haven't even had options and choice at that level with that um visibility so that people even knew they were an option. So teaching people about business was incredible, fantastic. But helping people problem solve was like I was getting like epiphanies, hits, like, oh my God, I was flying high when I was teaching those courses and problem solving with students, like practically. Oh, I loved it. Working as a TA for the first social entrepreneurship class at Laurier was like being like in an incubator, like being in a creative incubation place where people were incubating ideas for businesses that were like so different. Like the students were just running wild with their imaginations. Like, could it be a petting zoo that also grows all the food? That's not really a petting zoo. It's really a shelter for animals who are like, oh my God, the ideas were just, they were just like, they were so inspiring. They were just so open and creative. And so problem solving in that degree, when I reflect, I'm like, ooh, I love that. Like I love people healing and I love people having the opportunity to heal. But what I love most is when people get through the healing part and we get to like rub our hands together and be like, okay, now what? Now what? Now that you have all these resources, now you know what you're truly capable of. Now you're back in your state of empowerment. You're back in your state of like, I'm the creator. I'm here to create my life. There's like I get to do this. I have the right to do this. I'm worthy of doing this. I've like dealt with all of the things that made me think before that this was impossible, and now that I know it's possible, what next? So like launch padding. I love that. That's my area. That's the area where I'm like, let's go. Let's go. Everything seems possible. Everything seems to line up. When you start to incubate something like that with such good, beautiful, nurturing energy, oh my God, like resources show up, opportunities show up, doors open. And this is why it feels like it's even connected to God for me, because there's something beyond, there's something working in the background that's like unexplainable that shows up. And that's similar to, when I problem solve and I get out of my own way and I get out of my own head and I'm helping someone solve a challenge. This can happen with personal development, it can happen with trauma and like mindset work and healing. It's just, I just get a different like excitement off of the launchpad stuff. So then I realized, okay, I want to use this podcast platform to help people walk through their experience, and I'm going to use my experience as well as some experiences of other people, but not really, because it just doesn't feel like it's mine to share, and it's intimate, right? So I just feel very comfortable sharing mine, but the experience of other people has definitely been there. It's definitely been informed. It's definitely influenced because there's some commonality across the experience. There's an archetypal aspect of experience of healing that shows up across the board. So sharing all that felt like I could do that work without focusing on it to the extent that now it's become my life and my career, and that's where I am. And it helped me feel freed up that I could share this experience and share this for anybody who is listening in a way that it could feel like an extended mastermind that's available and free and helpful. And so that was always my intention with this, to like share what I was going through, share the fact that there is the potential to come to the other side. Like if you hear the first season, it sounds so different, and I was in the thick of it, coming in and out of it, almost like a baby crowning. Like holy smokes, I'd feel like I was out of it and I'd feel like I was high flying, and then I'd go under again for another like dip down into the shadow and work through some stuff. And it got me confused, and it made me feel at times like, what the hell is going on? Like, am I sharing that there is light at the end of the tunnel when it feels like the light at the end of the tunnel is only there temporarily and then it goes away? Like, what is going on here? Why does it feel so elusive? Why doesn't it feel like a permanent state? And then I was questioning whether it even, you could get to like some safe place where you felt like home, you were home free enough to like tip over and do the fun things. I'm like, I can't imagine people taking more risks and doing whole businesses with a fried nervous system. Like that doesn't sound sustainable. That doesn't seem sustainable to me. And so And then I'd watch and I'd witness and I'd see other coaches and I'd see coaches talk about stories with their clients as well, saying like, yeah, they hit their wall. They were going and hit their wall. They were doing it in the old energy. They were doing it in their old energy. They were doing it in their old way. And the transformation was requiring them to do it in a new way because they were a new person now. They were different. And wholeheartedly can attest to that experience. Being a new person, doing it in a new way, I simply couldn't go back to the ways I was doing things. I couldn't go back to the ways. I still have the love and the fondness, but my body wouldn't let me. Like I just, the whole thing, I don't even identify it with it anymore. I couldn't do the grind in the way that's like totally dismisses my body. I couldn't do the grind in a way that totally dismisses sustainability. I just couldn't. It's like similar to understanding social business and then like suddenly opening a business that's for profit only and poisonous for people and doesn't make them healthy and makes it worse for them. Like you just once you're aware of it, you can't. You just wouldn't do it. So these episodes were like a coming of age ish if you're going through what feels like a dissolution of yourself and having a new experience of self and then feeling weird about it and then but then still going through some weird purges of the old self, because as you get out and do life, you're like, whoa, this needs an upgrade. And I really do think that some people go about this differently. Like they do the rebirthing thing and then they go out and they do life and they quickly sort of get back into a personal identity that allows them to be highly functional. And maybe it's not the highest version, but it was the next version up. And it just feels like I went for like wrecking, like burn it all down to the ground. We'll start from the beginning almost. And so I think that's why it felt like there were seasons of huge contractions and then I'd get a little bit of air and then I'd get the light for a couple and then I'd go back. And so I'm glad that it's not something like I don't have the same attachment and the same motivation to do one-on-one deep healing work, but I really believe that it should be accessible for everybody. And I've walked myself through it in a way that I can say now I gained my whole life back. And so I want to record that because if people are hearing from some other people that you'll always be plagued with this certain amount of it and you'll always feel like not necessarily, no, because I feel like there are levels of stability that will never be shaken again. There are core aspects of me that never will I separate from again. Like there's a unification that took place that I questioned whatever if it was even possible. And now I know it's possible. It is possible. I'm living it and it's I wouldn't I couldn't go back. It's not even a thing to go back, and I wouldn't trade it. It was worth every second of it. Are there ways to get through it differently or more efficiently? Probably. This is my groping in the dark sort of experience of it, and like finding my own supports and finding my own teachers and finding my own therapists and finding my own way through it and largely being sovereign about it and really maintaining the self leadership through the whole thing while still connecting with other people and trusting them with a portion of it. And so it is not so this or that so straightforward. It is a bit of a paradox. It's a bit of, push and pull. And that's, I really got that with the masculine feminine balance and harmonization. I really got that. And it's funny because I got that download like years previous and I'm working with a channeler was like, this is what you're going to teach. And okay. And then went to teach it. And I'm like, well, the embodiment part, like realizing embodiment was huge. Like self-actualization, self-realization. We're always doing that. We're always shooting for an identity and then pulling it in or shooting for a grand experience. A quality of being is really what I could say if I'm being really clear. It's a quality of being that you shoot for and then you sort of reel it in. And it's not really outside of you. It's just like pulling it through. your experience. And as you pull it through all the areas that do not jive with it, that do not fit with it, that do not resonate with it, get purged. And you get to see that, because the more and more conscious you become, the more and more aware you become, you are just that aware of what's coming and what's leaving and what's being configured, because that's your consent as well. This is your free will. You could numb out and not be aware of it. You could be oblivious to it, or you could be very aware of the change that is coming through and expressing through you. And then you're aware of what you're radiating out. You're aware of how you're aware of the fact that you're that channel. And when you pull that pure energy, the pure potential, the pure uncreated energy through you, whatever your vessel is creating the shape of it, is interacting with it, is making a chemical reaction to it. And then whatever you're spitting out or radiating out energetically and materially demonstrates what you've created from that, demonstrates like, you know, where you're at. It's that mirror experience of, oh, I can see what I've created based on what my vessel is and who I am and my belief systems and all that. Like your form and your structure then reflects what you've been, how you've created yourself and contorted yourself. And then so with enough awareness of that, you get to start shaping that vessel. You get to start working with that vessel. You get to start creating from that. And some people aren't aware that they even have the ability to create from there. They're not even aware that that's the level of creation and design that they have. And then it feels like a paradox, because now instead of like coming to terms with, oh, I have this one functionality, you realize, oh, I function as all of the roles in this thing here. Like if this were a spaceship, I'm doing all of the controls. I'm the one at the helm of this ship. So this walk of paradox is more like a walk of multidimensionality. And it's interesting because then you get to know yourself a little bit more. I don't know, over these years of reflection, I've realized I'm equal parts pragmatic and dramatic. So sometimes very dramatic, sometimes very pragmatic, and attempting to blend. So last week talked about balance quite a bit. Balance and harmony are like my favorite things. They're like my virtues, my goals, my whatever. They're my things. They're the vibes. Balance and harmony. Balance because I've been a pendulum swinger before. I've been in the sides and the getters and the margins and the whatever. And I really do like balance. And balance feels like it's for our health, for our movement, our coordination. It's the biological and mechanical um, efforting, or the biological and the mechanical caretaking that we do. And then harmony feels like the synergy, the interplay of the different parts, all the instruments coming together to create the song, the orchestra creating the beautiful artwork. So balance feels like the scientific, and harmony feels like the artistic to me. It's like the enjoyment of the ride. I talked about it last episode in terms of like, you'd like all your wheels to be balanced on the car for you to drive, and for not to have this crazy wear and tear on your vehicle because something is completely out of balance. And harmony would be like everything's humming together and the ride is enjoyable. So I go deep, but also I remember it's not that deep. I can go to the depths of like, what do I even think existence is? And what is God? And oh my God, and we're only just here to love. And I can be watching my kids like, it's always sunrise or sunset. It's the craziest thing. Always sunrise or sunset when I have an experience with my kids that makes me so reverent that I feel like the amount of love that I'm experiencing, my body could melt I just turned into a puddle on the floor. I feel like I'm holding on to like some shooting star, and it's like my whole skin and face is like, pressed from the wind, like a dog with its face out the car window. But it's like love is the energy that's coming at me with such a force that I could crumble. I could just be melted. And so I have those moments of that deep reverence where I'm like, oh my God, if I had this feeling all day, every day, I couldn't even function. If I really let in how much I love being in this life with the people I love, and how much they mean to me, and how much their love means to me, and how much gratitude I have for just being alive at the same moment as them. Like just that, existing at the same moment of someone you love can like take your breath away. You could like hyperventilate. Like I could have a heart attack. There's so much love that I feel in this moment. Oh my God, I'm going to burst. And, then I get into moments where I feel like it's not that deep and I just want people to be quiet so I can listen to whatever I'm listening to. Or I just want people to be quiet because I don't want to hear everybody like talking at the same time or chewing. So it is a paradox. It's deep and it's not that deep. And I'm deeply reverent and in love and sometimes like annoyed and, stop. The human condition is like that. And accepting that, oh my God, that like it's been work. And it also has been a joy. And I like to get personal and let it go. I like to let it go. I like it to be a rush. And I love taking like a slow pace. I love paradox. I love the fact that I get to experience all the differences, all the nuances. I have less overall favorites, but more favorites for favorite situations or for certain situations. Like my kids are always like, when they were younger, what's your favorite color? I'm like, the rainbow. I love all the colors. No, no, mom, no. What's your favorite color? Like they're probably just asking so they can make me a card or paint me something in my favorite color, and I got to be difficult. But it's difficult to choose. It depends. Well, what's the day? What's the mood? What's it for? Like, and then I realized I just like interplaying with experience. I like the interplay of like responding to the experience. I like living on the edge of responding. I like responding to the experience, but clear of any like lack or feeling like I have to or shoulds or and that's probably what motivated me most to the self-help work was like I want to be resilient beyond resilient. I want to be in love with the now moment and I want to respond with the now moment and meet the now moment with my absolute best self in full love of the situation that's happening. And what's that going to take for me to get there? Oh, well, I can't be triggered by the moment too much. Like being triggered's fine, but if I'm being triggered to the moment of unplugging, then I've got to look at that. If like I'm in the experience and I'm so locked into my preferences that I can't enjoy the spontaneity that's coming over me, well, let's look at that too. So I was looking at my vessel and looking at what I'd created and looking at what was being reflected back to me and looking at how much acceptance and non-resistance can I have to that and how much resistance is here currently and what does the resistance mean and is the resistance coming from dissatisfaction and how can I find satisfaction in dissatisfaction? How can I still feel knowing they're the same thing, knowing the option is available to feel both, knowing this paradox walk is right there. So even when I'm feeling dissatisfied, how can I feel satisfaction that I just get to experience dissatisfaction, And that became such a love affair, and which to some may seem confusing or hypocritical. Like for experiences I like I like them varied, I suppose. Like, what's your favorite type of experience? I like a variety. I don't want to have to, and this could be Sag Moon stuff. This could be, you know, Cancer North Node, maybe, but part of me doesn't think so. That's what I think the nurturing part is. But either way, I have like this will to have a variety of varied experiences, expansive, free. And I also have standards of what I like, but those standards are less like it has to be this way and it's more it has to be this quality. It has to be um it's a quality of feeling, it's a standard of feeling. It's not about the favorite notes. It's about a whole genre. It's not about what's your favorite song? It's about, well, what mood am I in and what Spotify playlist matches it? I love that. I love the synchronicity of playing with it. For me, that's like pairing with moods, pairing with it's the interplay of the internal and the external, like improv. Like I love that feeling. I love that feeling. It's like the stranger matching your energy. Have you been in a store where like a song's on, you kind of dance and somebody else notices you're dancing, so then they're dancing? I just saw a TikTok. Is it a TikTok or it doesn't matter, a reel last night where it was like when the stranger matches your energy and this woman's like got her camera up and she's like just dancing to the song, like vibing out hard, like not tiny dancing, like, big bold dancing. And this person walks behind her and you would have thought it was her best friend because they hype her up, they dance with her, they do the same dance, like they basically harmonize, like somebody coming in and harmonizing, singing with you. And then you realize they don't even know each other. And it's like, I love that. I love that so fucking hard. I love that hard. Like having a stranger harmonize with you as you're singing, like not just sing the exact same thing, but harmonize with you. Blow my mind. Blow my mind. Why don't you blow my top off? Blow my lid. Not my top, as in from a few episodes like ago, bathing suit top. Like blow my lid. Like that is like that's like you know non-sexual orgasm. Although I think we've got it wrong, sexual energy. I think we've very much limited it to like orgasm and sex and like intercourse. And literally, if you could see my fingers, it's the the pointer finger and then the hole in my other hand. Like we think sex, that, and we've like made it so like distilled to this like gif of like penetration. And it's not sexual energy is like so much bigger and so much more and just so much more potent and just like making love to life and it's not necessarily, it's like a sexualness, as Dr. Dane here of Access Consciousness says. It's a profound experience of being alive and enlivened and energized by your experience, your environment, the internal and the external, like intercoursing with your life and your environment, like thinking about that energy just coursing through, coursing between, energy coursing between, like being alive. That's that shit I like. That's that shit I like right there. So anyway, that's the walk of paradox for me. And I understand that some people, this is why it's so interesting where people are like, I just don't vibe with those people. They don't get it. We don't speak on the same level. And I understand that. I want to be able to see the soul though in everybody. So even when words get a little bit confused and mixed up, I'd still love to like meet with someone and just look them in the eyes and have a bare experience, like of just like reverence and hey, there you are. I see you. Namaste. And at the same time, I get where, you could be talking about nuance and paradox and some people just they don't get it and they just think you're a hypocrite. I don't get it. Mm, like having conversations with my husband recently about how sometimes when people aren't aware of another perspective or the thing that they're talking about that somebody's talking about with them is outside of their perspective, it's outside of their purview, it's outside of their realm of consciousness, and it can get into a weird messy situation of like invalidation where the person's like, if I can't see it, it's not real, or like if there's no hard facts, it's not a thing. And you're like, but it is a thing. And for other, like for people who can see it, it's very real. For people who've practiced it, it's very real. I was talking to a friend who has horses and she works with horses every day and she loves it. And she's like, it's a language. It's an energetic language that I have to talk to them. Like you have to know when they're ready to let you get on them. And when there's something wrong with them, there's something. And for me, I'm like, yeah, totally. That's all around. Like we're doing that all the time, whether people recognize it or not. It's already a thing. It's like, think about it. Any of you that have animals that you innately, you're not speaking to them. They're not speaking back in English. It's an energetic language. So it's just interesting that people are experiencing it, but they've not given it credence or understanding in their own life. And then because it's something they've relegated to like, that's just my home life with me and my dog. That's not real. That's not something like it's real to me then, but I'm not going to overlay that as an energetic language that could actually be accessible all over the place all the time. Like, no. And I'm not saying in that tone to mock anybody by any means, but just like I love talking at that level. And sometimes I talk to people who don't get it or they don't enjoy talking at that level and they sort of act like it doesn't exist or that it's not proven or that it's debased or that it's like not functional or like it's somehow less than or it's like I don't know. And like, I value their perspective. I don't mean to, you know, I don't mean to knock anything. Or drag anyone. It's just more so that it sucks sometimes when you can't relate and you can't explain things on the same level, because relating is fun and it's part of this human experience. And it's so easy. It's so easy when we're not caught up in our head and in our stories. And when you just like simply see something the way it is, like, we don't even have to think the same way to like stand in front of the same sunset and just smile at the same time and be like, yeah, yeah, we're both taking this in this moment, and we're both feeling the common feeling of reverence and grace. And that's pretty amazing. And we could boil down a lot of life to stuff like that, and it would feel a lot more kindred and shared and blah, blah, blah. So, this has been the episode, starting to ramble, on the walk of paradox, on getting here, my reflection on like, what do these podcasts have to offer? Why have I even done them? What is it now that, excites me and where I want to go? And it's paradox. I just want to live in a paradox. I just want to do the match my energy shit with random strangers, um still create. It's the creating part. It's the creating epiphanies with people. It's creating those synergistic moments. It's the interplay of what opposites, or interplay of many coordinating experiences at once, everything everywhere all at once. And that's what I feel inspired by these days. So thank you for listening. I wonder what the next two will be about. Hopefully some ideas come to me. Again, find me on Instagram at Femist. I'd love to know where you're listening from, who you are, what you think, how you found these episodes. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Sending you so much love, and thank you for sharing your time with me.